I went to the High School of Fashion Industries here in New York City. I always had a strong interest in design, any creative performing arts. That was my release. That was my creative expression. So I made into the High School of Fashion Industry. From Brooklyn, I would travel to the city. I was always in the city. I was traveling the trains at a very young age. So talk about old school and School of Hard Knocks, you're looking at her right here. And got accepted to FIT and had a very strong career in the garment industry for over 20 years. It was a good experience for me. And I know you probably don't hear that a lot from other people with regards to this industry.
What'd you
And
do?
I specifically did fashion buying and merchandising. My involvement was in design, my involvement was in production, but primarily I was an account manager. My accounts were Victoria's Secret, Macy's, which required a lot of travel and a lot of time away from my family over the years. I reached a crossroad where I didn't feel as if I was getting anything out of it any longer. But more importantly, I wasn't home. I wasn't around for the games. I wasn't around for the achievements, the award ceremonies. Although I did very well in my career, but I never believed in hiring a nanny or having a caretaker in my home. In that regard, I was very structured within the old fashioned outlook.
I would say I'm progressive. I would say I'm radically progressive, but like I also believe in certain traditions. Tradition isn't good just because it's tradition. Certain
Correct.
things about tradition are good because they've stood the test of time, right? Like two parents in the home, right? I mean, that's just important. I was raised in a single parent home, and I know people. My wife was raised in a two parent home, and I just see like the things that she had. She had a home base. It's so important for a kid to have a home base, right? Somewhere where he or she can go, where they're safe, where they're encouraged, where they're taught. And if there's no structure in the house, and there's one parent, and kids are left to their own devices, there's a reason why parents raise kids and kids aren't left to raise themselves. Because what does a kid know? Kid doesn't know anything. They're just gonna eat cereal and watch junk TV, right? And it's not their fault.
And being a product of a divorced home, I did not want that. I remember the pain of the separation, the
Yeah.
anxiety attached to it, the the riffraff back and forth with my mom and my father, and how it extended into my other family members. My mom and my dad met at 13 years old in Fayette Street in Williamsburg. They literally lived across the street from one another. So all of my aunts and uncles, they know each other. So when I say it's a family structure, it's on a massive scale. And that sudden and permanent separation, I remember the impact of that. And although I loved my career, I did. It was about me and my creative expression and the longevity of it, right? How many people could say that they are involved with what they studied and their passion?
Right.
So I felt very fortunate, but I came to a crossroad and it was a very tough one. It was like a death. I mourned a death. I felt that way. But nonetheless, the importance of being around for my children, of course, outweighed that personal attachment, so to speak.
The whole thing of like, oh, women can have it all. I mean, women can have it all because nobody can have it all. For so long, you were taught like, oh, you could pursue a career and be a good parent and be a good friend, and you really can't. There's a saying with Native Americans: if you chase two rabbits, you're gonna lose both of them.
Absolutely. But I was raised, because coming from this divorce structure, my mother, she embedded it in my head. You need to chase the two rabbits.
Right, right.
You're lucky if I don't throw in a third one. That, like, my mother was so hardcore. She was very adamant about me being independent, super independent, not relying on anyone for anything.
That had to do with her probably being divorced, right? She's like, okay, I'm on my own now. No matter how brave she is, she probably had a twinge of fear or doubt and uncertainty that she never wanted her daughters especially to have, right?
And she wanted that negative generational culture to end. And she was going to end it. And she did. And she was very successful at it. But she also had her extended family helping her. My grandmother became available 24/7 just so that her daughters and sons could flourish. So the importance of having that family dynamic played a vital role into who I am today. So that family structure is a linear focal point. And I just felt, it was just time. It was just a crossroad in my life.
Right.
It didn't matter how much money I made. It didn't matter my investments, because the more you invest, like Biggie said, more money, more problems. And
Yeah.
it's truth. And you start to dilute yourself, and then you become attached to your wants, not towards your needs.